This camera angle isn't picking up my awesome shirt, so Sonic the Hedgehog. To my channel. My name is Shaki and I have a very big wrap up for you. One, sorry for my nails. I literally had the energy to film this and I took it and I didn't really do my nails since work, and work chipped my nails like no one's business. Also, as soon as I set my setup up, that was a weird sentence. As soon as I set my video up and stuff to record, my neighbour literally there started mowing her lawn. Literally as soon as I sat down to film, it was just so I'm sorry if you can hear that in the background. I have shut the window. I'm very hot because of it, I'm not gonna lie. I'm also gonna try and shout over her, so hopefully I can do that. Here is my August wrap-up. So as a lot of you know, I did participate in the Booktubeathon 2018. I'll leave a link to the playlist in the description box below, and I'll also leave the end video where my wrap-up is, as I won't be talking in depth too much about the books that I read in the Booktubeathon. That being said, these are all of the books that I managed to read in the month of August. And no, I will not be holding this up again. Or I would just jump into this. There are 9 books that I read during the Booktubeathon. There are 5 books that I read outside of the Booktubeathon. And let's just get into this because it's going to be long either way. So strap yourselves in, get a cup of tea, get a snack, and let's do this. The first book that I managed to get read in August is the first book that I read in the Booktubeathon, and that was Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. So if you didn't know, this is the first book in the kind of Grisha series, verse, trilogy thing. It basically follows our character Alina, who is an orphan and who just thinks she's an ordinary girl. While she's a lonely orphan, she discovers this power that she has, that she holds over everybody else. And this book is basically just her figuring out who she is and how powerful she is, and kind of how the village has a really high expectation of her to, you know, defeat the Shadowfold and to save them from existence, and they kind of overestimate or underestimate her, and it just kind of shows how people's opinions can get in the way of your true colours and how people under pressure don't always work in a certain way. I can't remember the ratings, I didn't put it on Goodreads. Damn it. I think it was around a 4 or a 3.75. I can't actually remember. But it is in my spoiler-free review of this that I have up on my channel, which I'll leave linked below. I did enjoy this. There were some tropes in it, but there were also some fantastic parts, and I will be carrying on with the series. As you can see, at the very end, next to Wonder Woman, I have bought the next book in the series, and I'm really excited to read it. The next book that I managed to get read in August, and therefore the second book in the Booktubeathon, was The Guest Cat by Takashi Hirae. So this is basically about a couple that are Japanese writers, and they've been married for a while and they're kind of bored, not bored of each other, but bored of like the mundane life that comes with like just living for a long time, I think. So the couple are really going through the motions of life and their relationship until they stumble across a cat. I think they call it Shibi, or it's just called Shibi in general, and they basically kind of like feed them and they let them into their lives. I don't really remember this book that well because for a short book, it was so boring. I know that it's translated from Japanese and I know that it's written in a Japanese style. I just didn't enjoy it too much. And my boyfriend, who actually likes Japanese and Asian culture, read this as well and said he was also bored out of his mind. So I gave this in between a 2.5 and a 3 stars on Goodreads because I really did think it was boring. For a small book, it seemed to go on forever. I don't actually know what happens in this book, like I couldn't tell you. The next book that I managed to get read in August and the Booktubeathon was The Selection by Kira Cass. One of my Booktubeathon vlogs has a huge rant about this in, and I will link it below along with all the rest of them. This is set in a kingdom where the Prince of the Kingdom, Prince Maxon, is looking for a suitable wife, a suitable lover, and as, you know, follows with all the princes in the kingdom, he holds basically a competition of like 30 women. I think it's like 27-30 or something around that mark, and it's basically just a royal version of The Bachelor. You can kind of see with my really small undescriptive, like, you know, description of what this book is about. I did enjoy it slightly, a little bit. I know it's a 4-star read, but for me personally, I couldn't give it any more than a 3 because I just didn't agree with its values. Wasn't a fan. I can see why you'd like it, no shade on you, but I just didn't. My political opinions got in the way of me liking this and rating it any more than a 3. The next book that I managed to get read in the month of August, and therefore was a read in the Booktubeathon, was Matilda by Roald Dahl. I really enjoyed this one. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars, and it is possibly a new favourite of mine. Favourite middle grade, I'd say, at least. So this, if you didn't know, the story of Matilda is basically about a girl called Matilda who comes from a really underprivileged background. She has parents that don't really care for her, a sibling that is an asshole, and just her life is all around crap. for a young girl. It's not the best environment to grow up in. And so Matilda really flourishes despite all of these things. She's top in her class at school. She has these mystical magical powers. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that she's magical. And she just basically kicks all of their asses and is just flourishing with Miss Honey. That's a really bad description of this book, and the way it made me feel was just magical. It's kind of just, my energy is just blah 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 blah. Despite my, you know, unenthusiastic description of this, I really did enjoy this. I enjoyed the movie even so much more. As I said, I did give this a 5 out of 5 stars, and there isn't really much to say because I bet you all know what this is about already. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. The next book I also have a spoiler-free review for, and that is linked below. Who Runs the World by Virginia Burgeon. This was a controversial one. I don't really know what my opinions are of this, but this basically follows a dystopian world, if you will. I guess it could be dystopian, where a disease knocks out all of man, and the only people left on Earth are women, and the men that do survive this disease are in like camps and stuff, and they're used for experiments, I think. And the whole world believes that, you know, all men have gone until our main protagonist, River, stumbles across Mason, who has escaped from, I think, one of the camps and is now in her home and in her life. This was a very controversial read, and I do explain it a little bit more in depth in my review. But basically, there was either two types of readers while reading this, according to Goodreads, and that was people who loved this and people who said it was man-hating. I fall somewhere in between. I don't think it was the best feminist book I've ever read, and I don't think it was the worst either. And I go a bit more in depth in my review of my opinions on this, and it's gender discourse. So head over there if you want to know my full, like, report. My review. But in the end, I did result in giving this a 3.5 stars on Goodreads, and that's kind of all you really need to know. The next book that I managed to get read in August and was also part of the booktubeathon was This Mortal Coil by Emily Savada. So this basically follows a girl called Katharina, but I'm just going to call her Kat for short because I always get tongue-tied. But this is about a girl called Kat, and she and her father both live in a world where you can edit your genes, and there's basically a disease going around, and her dad is like a huge genius and he can edit genes really well, and he codes them, and he is trying to look for a cure, and he mysteriously gets taken away, and then Katerina is like informed that he has died and she has to carry on his work. That's what I thought this book was about, but it's basically just a huge big sci-fi trope filled fest. I mean, it was still good, but I feel like there was some tropes in here that I could have just not used. There was a love triangle, there was a plot twist for the sake of having a plot twist, there was a clear villain, there was a plot twist that you saw coming, and there was just loads of things that just, you know, I rolled my eyes at and I predicted most of the things that were coming. I did still enjoy it all in all, but in the end I did give this a 3.75 because I do think the initial idea was better than the actual execution. The next book that I read in August / the booktubeathon is How Do You Like Me Now by Holly Bourne. So if you didn't know, Holly Bourne is a YA author. She's predominantly YA, and this is her first debut adult novel. I did give this a 4 stars. Like all Holly Bourne books, I loved it because it was Holly Bourne. I also did enjoy it, not because of that factor, but because it was really interesting. It is about a woman called Tori, our main character, who is 30 years old, and she is a feminist writer. She's a feminist, like, self-help person. She's a very famous author, and she's helped a lot of people get out of relationships and feel like they're single. However, she wrote this in her mid-20s, for mid-20s, and now she's 30. She's kind of lost and doesn't really know what to do with herself. On top of all of this, her boyfriend doesn't want the same things as her. She really wants a baby and to get married. Like, all of her friends are around her, but her boyfriend doesn't want the same, and it basically makes their relationship extremely unhealthy. Obviously, as you can tell, I am not 30 years of age, but this is still very interesting because I'm about to enter my mid-20s, and I feel like a novella of the thing that Tori wrote would have been interesting as well. It's really interesting to see what my 20s would have been like, and I only need to cherish them because a lot of people didn't and they regret that, and I just feel like I relate to this book more than I thought I would. The second to last book I read in the booktubeathon, but the next book that I read in August is Warcraft by Marie Lu. I was supposed to have a spoiler-free review of this by now, but I don't think I'm ever going to get around to it. I have the notes, I just don't have the motivation or the enthusiasm right now. If you didn't know, this was one of the hyped books of last year. A lot of people enjoyed this, and I was no different. This is about a girl called Emmy who is a hacker. She basically lives her life, Emmy does, as a Warcraft bounty hunter for people who play it illegally or bet or something. But one day the Warcraft championships happen and she accidentally glitches herself into the game, and she thinks she's going to be in so much trouble for it. She thinks she's going to get, you know, put in prison. But actually, the creator of the game, Warcraft, and the championships slips her a phone call and offers her a job to work for him to track down Zero, a really, really, really dangerous hacker. I gave it somewhere between a 3.75 and a 4 stars because I could have enjoyed it a little bit more. I was kind of losing my interest because of the booktube-a-thon and because of the storyline that happens, and just because I just didn't want a love triangle again. I just didn't want love. I just wanted her to be her own person. But I did enjoy this. It was very good. It did live up to the hype, and I am going to be picking up the next one and most of Marilou's other work. And the last book that I managed to get read during the booktube-a-thon, but only one of the many books that I got read in August, was that's not right, was City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. This is the second book in the Mortal Instruments series, also by Cassie Clare, and I can't give much about this book because of spoilers for the first one, but I can give you a little rundown of the series so far and the first book. So if you don't know, this follows a girl called Clary who's very young. She's very confused in the first book, and she basically sees these people called shadow hunters, and she gets very confused, and then she like chases after them and manages to fit herself, her mundane self, into the world. As she escapes more from everyday dystopia into this world, she finds out that it's more complicated than she first anticipated. There's love, there's adventure, there's self-discovery, and overall she just has a whirlwind of emotions for a 16-year-old girl, which is why she is so moany. I did enjoy this book. I'm currently reading the Mortal Instruments series just because it is such a classic here on BookTube and everyone speaks about it. Cough cough Emma Books. However, I do feel like I jumped on this bandwagon a little bit too late, and I feel like me a few years ago would have really enjoyed this much more than me right now is enjoying it. For those reasons, I gave this book somewhere a 3.75 and a 4 stars because I can't really pinpoint what's wrong or what's right about this book. I know I enjoyed it, but I'm not really sure. I think I just missed the bandwagon with this one, and it's really a shame. Okay, so now we have kind of skirted over all of the books that I read in the booktube-a-thon. We're going to get onto some books that I read just in the middle of August. There are 5 of them, and we're going to quickly go through them. So the first book that I read outside the booktube-a-thon, but the next book that I read in August, is The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Brackett. Because the movie of this came out in August, and Waverley was really anticipating going to see it, so I read this really quickly in order to go and see it, which was a bad move on my behalf. So if you didn't know, this is about a dystopian world with a little girl named Ruby in it. Ruby, where there's a disease going around that is currently killing children, and those who haven't died have these like superpowers or abnormal powers that all the adults are really scared of and intimidated by. So Ruby finds herself a survivor of the disease. She doesn't know why, and she doesn't really know what's happening until something tragic happens with her parents, that she is separated from them and is put into a camp for people who have these superpowers and have survived against the child-killing disease. So each of the children that have survived the disease have different powers, and they're segregated into different colours. So we have green, blue, yellow, red and orange. Red and orange are the most dangerous, but the rest of them aren't that intimidating. So yeah, Ruby finds herself in this world and she feels like she's normal, she's fitting in, until she finds out she is an orange and very dangerous. So this story basically follows that, and how Ruby is really underestimating herself and kind of is scared of herself and scared of her powers, and trying to find someone who's also an orange, and being betrayed and being a little selfless hoe. And I loved Ruby so much, but unfortunately it wasn't really enough to bump this up in my opinion, in my like honest opinion. It was okay. The next book that I read in the month of August was Dorothy Must Die by Danielle Page. So I gave this book a 3.5, and if you didn't know what this is about, it's basically about a girl called Amy Gum, and she is basically from a rundown family. She lives literally in a caravan with a mum who is addicted to prescription pills, I believe. And so Amy is just really fed up, and she's wished and wished and wished for her to be able to move out and like pursue her own life. Unfortunately, Amy gets her comeuppance because a tornado hits her caravan and she's whirled up in it and she lands in Oz. But it's not the Oz that we find is in movies such as The Wizard of Oz or the Book of the Wizard of Oz. No, Amy is in a dystopian version where Dorothy has fucked up Oz since she's been there, and Amy is sent to try and fix everything and kill her. This book was a bit meh for me, to be honest, and I still don't really know what I feel about it. It is literally the embodiment of the song Old Yellow Bricks by Arctic Monkeys. I don't really like Wizard of Oz as much as someone who would pick this up like, I love Wizard of Oz, you know, and that isn't exactly the author's fault, it's mine, but I thought I'd be surprised, and I kind of was. Also, the ending of this left me so unsatisfied. It was actually unreal, and some people liked the ending, some people didn't. I'm in the people that didn't, and I don't know, this was just an okay book for me. The next book that I managed to get read in August was To All of the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. So this has a Netflix movie out, and it is basically the same story as that. It's basically about a girl called Laura Jean who writes letters to her ex-boyfriends or her ex-love interests, and basically to all the boys that she's loved before. And she keeps them in this little pot, jar thing, container that her mother has given her, her late mother who passed away. There's so many things in this book that I want to talk about in this wrap up, but unfortunately they were all kind of spoilery. It was beautifully written and orchestrated and executed, and I really enjoyed it, and I fell in love with Peter Gavinsky. And I have another book boyfriend, so why not? Here's the 4 stars. Obsessed. Absolutely obsessed. You'll be pleased to know this is the second to last book that I managed to get through in August, and that is When the Curtain Falls by Carrie Hope Fletcher. So I recently purchased this at a signing from Carrie Hope Fletcher. There will be a link to the vlog in the bar down below. So this follows a production of When the Curtain Falls in a theatre where in the 1950s it goes completely wrong and the main leading actress dies. Her name is Fawn and she dies on stage. And then a production of When the Curtain Falls is made in modern day, almost 50 years later, and there are just some hauntings in the theatre and there's mystical things about this show and its context. There's a huge content warning on this for suicide and mental health and stuff like that because it is quite dark and twisty, which wasn't really expected from Carrie all that much, but I really loved the elements and I'm really glad that she talks about it. Massive content warning for that and domestic violence and really sensitive topics like that, violence to women. That's something I actually want to talk about. Is there's a lot of slut shaming in this because of something that happens, and I just feel like most of the plot points in here were really quite useless, and just you could have got to the story so much faster. I did actually prefer Fawn and Walter's story, the old production of When the Curtain Falls. I found Olive and Oliver's names in the modern day production of When the Curtain Falls way too close together, way too similar, and I just feel like they could have had different names. Olive is Oliver without the R. And I had to read some lines about 5 times because I didn't know if it was Oliver or Olive, unless it said he or she and, like, you know, the context. I did enjoy this though. I cried like a baby, and those are the only 2 negative things I really found about this book. I really enjoyed it, and therefore I gave it a 3.9 stars on Goodreads. Really specific we are, really specific. And the last book that I managed to get round to in August, thank God we're at the end of this pile, was Catwoman Soulstealer by Sarah J Maas. This is the 3rd installment of the DC Icon series, which is just there. This particular one is on Catwoman, and I'm not the biggest fan of Batman or this franchise or anything like that, but I thoroughly enjoyed this and gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. So this starts off with a little bit of a prequel, and I was a bit confused at the start, but you know what, it unraveled itself and I was really content. This is about a girl called Selena, and she is basically a young carer at the beginning. The sister with cystic fibrosis. Saying sister and cystic in the same sentence is not good for my fucking short tongue. It's a travesty. But this follows them too, and Selena is trying to just be a basically criminal. Like, she's in like fights and heists to make money for her sister and her to live. The mother is nowhere to be seen. She is presumably an alcoholic or a drug addict or very abusive or all of the above. So Selena has to step up and be a mum basically, until Selena and her sister get separated. So she returns a few years later, now interlinked with something called the League, and she's back to Gotham City with a secret mission. And oh my god, it's beautiful, it's beautifully written, beautifully executed, researched. There's Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn shipping material in here, so if you're into that, please read this book. If you feel like you have a strong connection with badass women who like to blow shit up, this is the book for you. I thought this book was going to be okay. I didn't expect to love this as much as I did. I solidly cried for the last 40 pages of this book, and I have no regrets. 5 out of 5 stars. It was beautiful. I don't regret reading it at all. It was wonderful. So there are all the books that I read in August. We made it through. We made it through the wilderness. I'm really sorry that this is so long. I think I've been talking for 40 minutes, which is going to be fun trying to get on my laptop. I'm not going to hold it up again, but those were all the books that I read in the month of August. Finally did it. Thank you so much for watching if you're still watching. If you did like it, please give it a massive thumbs up and subscribe. I make new videos on this channel every Tuesday. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon for a 24-hour reading vlog. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I will see you then or next time I upload. Bye!
You've got a face for a smile, you know. A shame you're wasted when you're breaking me slowly. But I've got a world of change.